when we start building a house, if we don't put, the concrete floor down, right? And we just start building studs, we don't have a foundation. If we building walls with studs. If we start, building those walls, but we don't put them evenly spaced so we know where the insulation is going to go and some of the insulation is going to fall down, right? Well, at the end of the day, we don't really have a house, right? And I think I recognize this so clearly, and that's so common. And the reason why I do is because it was like the 2 years where I tried to replace yelling with not yelling, cover anger, but I didn't have all the rest of the steps in place. All right, dude. Inspire, lead, ask, invite, and then we motivate with boundaries. Now, you are in a particularly unique situation, dude, because you've crushed the program. Absolutely crushed the program. I mean, look at you. You're just back from a workout. That's one of the things you really leveled up here. And you look like a slobbery mess, but that's good because it means you worked out.
Yep.
And it's such a great example because you recently saw a pretty nice boost, pretty nice edification, right? Build up from your wife because she shared a picture of you working out and talked about how hard you work with your 2 jobs and essentially what kind of great man you are. And obviously that's frustrating then when we haven't picked up the next little bit of intimacy. You've picked up so many levels of intimacy, but the next little bit is actually the big, right? It's the checkered flag. And so first and foremost, man, I just love that you are bringing the yes tone, showing up continually, picking up on a little bit here and there about where maybe expectations can be bleed. And you said something that I immediately wanted to get on a call for you right away because you picked up on it and you're starting to catch on. When you're showing up and she's got to show, it's frustrating. And we've talked a lot about the time, right? Like, one of your messages talked about a year ago how you wouldn't have been able to have hard conversations. And now you're getting through difficult conversations. They're conversations and it's bringing you closer, but yet we're not over the hill, right?
Yep.
And what did you say? It was perfectly said. It was, I know I'm not supposed to have expectations and the guys keep calling me out expectations, but I spend a lot of time with you with voice notes. You don't have expectations. You're questioning because you're curious, because you want this love of your life to just feel that last massive desire, lust, all in with you. And I don't believe it's expectations. What I believe is you are at the stage where it's reciprocation. That's what we deserve, right?
Yep.
And so when we think about the beginning of a relationship, when you and your wife met, you guys were hot for each other. We get this bad rap for expectations and we get this bad rap for approval seeking behavior. But let's be honest, every relationship starts with approval seeking behavior. That's why we are so happy to go on the next date. We're doing that to each other. We're validating. I love you for this. I love you for that. Oh my gosh, you're so sexy. Oh, come here. I want you. It's all approval based. And it's just the way it works with any relationship. I mean, you go to the pet store to pick up a puppy. Well, hopefully you're rescuing one. But anyway, you're not getting the dog that doesn't want you. You're getting the dog that's kind of excited. It's just sort of a natural thing. I mean, my wife would kind of disagree with that, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And what happens is, like you said a year ago, you wouldn't have been able to have those conversations. Well, all that stuff that caused all that crap in the beginning, or from the beginning to change, was what's weighed everything down. It's what's made her think, well, you still have expectations, for example, right? And it's because we did all this work to blame the other person, remove the validation, the approval seeking, cooperative reciprocal relation stuff was interfered with. Well, you owe me this, and here I'm going to puke my feelings, my needs. I need to have this. And we let her know without even trying that we were using her for her body. But I know there isn't a man that comes to me that doesn't want more, right?
Yeah.
And so now we're at a stage where I really wanted to speak with you, Greg, because I do believe it's time to invite. It's time to ask more seriously. Okay. And it's one of the things that I don't cover in the reset because I don't want guys to just start doing it. Right. They still are blending expectations with what's reciprocated is important because I'm proud of who I am. And you answered that question, which was like, okay, call time. You're like, no, man, I am proud of who I am. I am so proud of the man that I've become. I can see where I've messed up. I can tell the difference between expectation and I feel lonely. My wife isn't on that page with me, that next level with me. And so I just want to confirm before I move forward, this is actually how you feel. You love your assessments. You love looking in the mirror. You're proud of all these changes. You love leading men and helping them with the growth that you've occurred in your or transformed in your own life. You have identified so much more, and we don't need to go into it. I'm not going to sit here and build you up because you know it already. That is correct. Yes.
Yes, 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 and yes. And yeah, I'm very proud of who I've become and the direction that things are going for myself. And I've just, this other thing is just getting further and further and further behind me and not coming with, it does not feel like I'm pulling her along or leading her along in the same direction.
Well, we definitely want to be careful with the verbiage there, just for your own mindset. Like we don't want to say pulling her along. That's nobody feels like following if they feel like they're being dragged. But I know what you mean. Um, you are, and you're doing great. And the reason I know that is because of these kinds of hard conversations. You know, you were scared to talk about the Father's Day one, and boom, brought you guys closer, right? And
Yeah.
so we are building intimacy. And what you're experiencing is the freedom that she's feeling to just pull back. She's not in a program, so she's still giving you some of those awkward looks when you make an advance, let's say, right? I love
Mhm.
the example of the counter. You put her on the counter and you're like, well, we're 39, like it can't hurt that bad, you know. But you kept it in check. That's what you thought, and you just kept it in check. Maybe that was an afterthought, but the the point is, number one, it's massive. It's a massive move forward because she is free to just say no. And that's why you're experiencing that it's gone a little longer than normal. But you see, that's not the quality that we didn't like before, at least. But then you're going through this thing where it's like, well, it's not the quality, but now it's also not the quantity. In her freedom to be her and to be feeling safe with you, it means to her that it's like, I don't want to. And so that's where you get into this frustration stage. And so we want to start asking her to join you. You know, when you grow, it's really hard to be with somebody if they don't grow with you, no matter how much you love, no matter how much you adore her, which I mean, I know how much you care for your wife, how much you absolutely want the whole package. And we have to look at patience then. So, you know, it's just let's put it out there. How many years was it bad?
Couple years, 3
Okay.
years.
Let's go with 3 because it's a beautiful way to look at it. So 3 years. And now we're talking about the 3 months in the program where you do have all these wins, right? And we look at the patience formula and we go, well, first off, like, you know, how bad was it? You certainly weren't as bad as me, right? I mean, nowhere near. So we have to start looking at like, how much time do I want to put into this? Like, I love her and I deserve more. I deserve reciprocation. And you're looking at all the wins, and I think that's getting frustrating for you because some of the guys are looking up to you going, "Well, dude, you're so lucky," right? So we have to look at like how how much can I tolerate? So first time, right? 3 years versus 3 months. Is it fair to be allowing our wife to be free for the first time to the point where she's dialing back going, "This is amazing. I can like there's no pressure," which is a little bit hard to take when she's a little bit awkward. We'd like her to be free enough to just say, "No, thanks, babe," or "I'm not down," versus like the funny glares or
Yeah.
the awkward comments. But that's an ask that we can make, right? Without invading or attacking her, without puking feelings. That would be such a beautiful ask right now, where it's like, "Hey, babe, I love that you're feeling more free. I don't want to say you're feeling like you can, you know, not walk on eggshells or unapologetically yourself. And I'd love to hear more about what you think. But I love that you're feeling safe enough to just, you know, pull back from me. You know, would you like to talk about that?" And you move into a half wrap, right? Where you start to ask her, you know, how does it feel when you're rejecting me or knowing that I want that next level of intimacy? You know, can you explain more about where you're at? And by the time we get through this wrap, we can start to ask, right? But if you can be more patient with us, we would prefer to do as many as it takes, knowing that she's moving along. Only if we're moving forward. right? Because it does us no good to, wait 3 years if she's not even trying to be completely open and honest would be the first step with these feelings, right? And so, based off where you're at, I think that would be a really good start, but we're not trying to get the answer about how or why she doesn't quite feel it yet. What we want to do is get her to a point where she's feeling completely safe to in a nice positive way say, "Babe, I love you. I'm just I'm not there tonight." You know?
Mhm.
And then how you mentioned like, just a nice passionate kiss or just a perfectly loving embrace. Right now I just want to feel that physical connection. As long as it's distinction in your brain and it's not like, all right, this means that I can, right? We understand what stage she's at because she's feeling. That would be a massive step forward because then she's sharing completely where she's at. So we know we have true safety, right? The peace pillar is in place. She trusts you. And then from there, she's a little more free, where you're not asking for a kiss. It's not just you making the move for a kiss. It's when she starts to let that part warm up to her, start to feel good. It lets her have the expectations like supported that they are gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I talk about that probably almost feels almost discouraging to you because you probably thought we were going to get on here and I'd be like, okay, we got to talk about the checker flag here, right?
No, no, not real. It's just,
Oh, good.
it's the going back 3, 4 weeks ago when there was a couple of the date nights where there were some expectations for sex, and that was kind of some of my safe reactions. And since then, it felt like just a kiss, just other non-sexual intimacy is just gone.
Well, I think if you can recall back to that, like that's the problem when we start showing up. If you think about the patience formula, the 3 years versus the 3 months, when we remember I said, and you were like, oh, I didn't think about that. Like if I'm showing up differently at work because I'm wearing my heart on my sleeve, essentially, right? Like I'm hurting and I'm missing this and I'm feeling lonely, like I'm not performing at work the same way. And I said to you, it kind of bleeds in, like your wife can smell it a mile
Mhm.
away. So if you think back to the patience formula, when something like that happens, and I don't believe you had expectations except for the night that she said, "Yeah, let's do it." Like this is we're gonna go for it. It's not even expectation at that point. It's just like it's a plan. It's like we think it's happening. Like it sounds like it's good, right? And guys forget that she could be fully intentional and be like, "Yeah, let's do it," right? And there is a place for sex dates and all that, and of course, it's better when we're there, but it can also be a place that you use to incorporate when you're trying to get there. So when she pulled back, I don't think you had a negative expectation. I think that it was more like, well, that was just the plan. Like, I'm kind of disappointed,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah,
feel disappointed,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. I mean, I didn't have an expectation other than you said it was going to happen, so I just thought it was
Yeah.
happening.
So I think that's where we get burned sometimes, right? We forget that it's kind of like the guys that just poke her in the side, but they don't flirt at all. And they don't realize, like, from the moment you guys just took care of each other, just satisfied each other, that's where it starts again, where we got to, get the pot warmed up and, simmer and all, And so, see, I know that you're doing all that stuff. So that will also feed into your frustration. But at the same time, go back to the patience formula. Think about how, okay, so if expectations or she felt used or had to do the job or pity thing for a long time, intentional or not, right? Trying to love you as a good man or not, or be a great wife or whatever, that's a reminder of those negative feelings. Even if you hold your poop together and you are a badass Lord and she just feels guilty, which I think is happening a lot with her, with a lot of
For sure.
these the major success you're having. She feels guilty, and any negative feelings don't allow her to move past that. So that's where those raps can actually, like, you get into some good quality raps where you're just listening to her, you know. And you probably did it in your own way. I don't think you said you did rap report for the Father's Day thing, but I think you probably did it
No.
your own way. Um, and the difference would be because you were explaining how you felt with that, right? Versus what we want to do is get her to feel. The more you can do that, the more she's gonna then open up, and we can start to get to the next stage. But I think it's an ask right now where it's like, babe, I really want to understand. Like we can leave the conversation about sex off the table, but I really, really want to understand where you're at just on any physical level. You know, how does it feel when I kiss you? Can you maybe start there? You know, and
Yeah,
then,
these would be good because I've been struggling with what topics to discuss for the half wraps because I know we're there where it needs to happen. But
okay, so let's go through some examples for you. So, kissing or embracing and cuddling, I think would be the same sort of thing. You know, also, if you really wanted to go further, you could start talking about like the specific examples that happened, like the other day when I just kissed you on the counter. You know, you could also, if you really want to be going for it, you know, which I think as long as we're not going to like the act of sex, you know, I think you can say things like, "How did it feel when I, said I want you now?" Right? Or "I'm taking you now," or however you said it, right?
yeah,
And because you've done lots of it, you've done the gentle start, and now you've done, going for it again, right? And so you can use like three or four of those examples, not as like an attack. I want to know how you like it, just gentle. Like, I'd love to know how you feel about, like not the act of sex. Be clear, right? Be
yeah,
man enough to be clear. And babe, I want to get to know you more. I've loved so much of where we've come these last 90 days, like the connection that we've been building, just so I understand you more. I would love to hear about what it feels like for things like, when I kiss you, or what it feels like you deeply, truly, for you when I tell you I want you. You're smiling. This should be non-invasive, non-intrusive. You're smiling because you should be excited to understand her more, to learn more about her, right? And it will create more of an environment for her to feel safe. It doesn't mean that she will feel safe, right? Because this could give her a lot of anxiety, right? She also would remember, if you think back to the 3 years, all the times that, where did this go? Right? It
yeah.
went to, when are we going to have sex again? Why don't you want me? What would make you want sex? Why don't you like it? And all those talks and those fights, right? And so, knowing that though, you just stat respond so that you can just love her through that. Babe, I get that. This is different. I want to know. It's not defensive to clarify. This is different. I want to know you, babe. I've loved getting to know you, reconnecting over the last 3 months. I want to know you. How do you feel when I come up behind you and kiss you on your neck? And just switch to a different one. The idea is to, as she's challenging you, as her anxiety is gripping her and her insecurity, because she's got some insecurity for sure right now, thinking about you leveling up and she's not there yet. Right. So whether or not you see it or no, it's there. She's got some anxiety over it. Right.
Yeah, she
So
just recently started making comments about working out, which she's always, I mean, she works out 5 days a week, pretty much has since the day I've known her, has never stopped. And all of a sudden now I hear her making comments about herself that are, I have to like rein her back in. I'm like, what are you like? You're beautiful. Like, what are you talking? It's like she's making this, she all of a sudden feels less about herself because I've done more. And so that's
and
kind of
that's
hard to see. I'm like, what is going on? Like, you're
yeah, that's
incredibly beautiful. Like, what are you talking? Like, the way she talks, it's as if she put on weight, which that's not.
well,
It's
keep in
so
mind,
weird.
so it's hard for you in the moment to see it, but careful not to be the lecturer, right? Because if you can love her through that, right, rather than try to convince her that she's beautiful. Right now, she's feeling less. And if she is attaching that to the success that you're showing up with, right, then you're probably the last person that's going to convince her anyway, because she's already
True.
worried
Yeah.
about it for you, right? Being good enough for you. You remember, she's going through some of this nice guy type stuff too. It's just that the book was written
Definitely.
for men, right? Okay. And when we level up, that is definitely part of the natural process for a lot of people, Greg, where they start to really feel bad about themselves. And we know that that's happening with the physical intimacy. It's just that you've done such a good job. She's being more free. So it's massive, and it gives you the opportunity to now do this ask. right? But the ask isn't for what we want. And I think a lot of guys get a little bit confused. It can be, when I talked to James the other day, his was more of an ask for what he wants. It's specifically a growth ask, right? But right now, you have a wife opening up like a motherfucker if she's feeling safe enough to go, I'm cool. I just don't want this right now, right? And to come to you the next day and say, I'm sorry about the date. Like knowing that that could have been an opportunity for you to lecture on what she said and that it was planned for a night of crazy wild or whatever it is that she thinks that you would have done it from the past. And so let's use this opportunity to invite her to share more, to feel safer, right? And as she's overcome by anxiety or nervousness or guilt, anything negative, use that opportunity to love her through it and share other examples of just what would be great for clarity for you, right? So I know, for example, a regular kiss or passionate kiss, right? I call that regular, right? Whether you're talking about the embracing or the cuddling kind of thing, just natural stuff that we would normally do. The counter, I think, is a great one. The kiss on the back and neck is a great one. But you want to be clear that it's like I don't even want to go down the road with the sex thing right now. I want to go down the road of getting to know you just like a deep level, right? And I think you're going to get such positive reaction out of this. It might not be right at that moment, but if you do this
Yeah.
correctly, if you do this very correctly, especially if you can get her walking through the rap, right? Where she's like, well, I feel okay. And so do you know what you need, babe? Do you know what would help with how you feel? I mean, and of course you've repeated back what she's already said, right? Like, okay, so like you feel a little bit nervous or anxious about the direction of where it's going if you kiss me passionately. Okay, that's really good information. Okay, so do you know? And you're asking lots of questions, right? For clarity, do you know, like what that's tied to specifically for you? Are you able to identify that, or just so
You
I
talking
know you
like
don't have
the
to?
past, the tied to something in the past, that part of the question?
Yeah, could it? Yeah, yes and no. It could not be. Maybe it's actually nothing to do with the past. Maybe it's right now, right? Maybe she says, "Well, I mean, for example, like I've spent a lot of time being insecure that you're talking to girls at the gym, and I have a hard time getting into it right now. It makes me want to get hotter too, and like we don't know, right? The goal is to know, okay? And the more she feels safe enough to let you in to know, then we can work with that, right? So then, okay, so that makes a lot of sense. I'm just going to use the made up example because I don't think this is it, but let's go with it. So we're not assuming anything for her, okay? And let's say, oh my gosh, honey, that must feel terrible to feel like I'm looking at other girls because of where we're at right now. And then you can assure her, but be curious first, right? Would you like me to talk about that? Personally, I'd like to hear more before I did any speaking, and learn, right? And then, okay, so if I understand correctly, you're really insecure is basically, from am I talking to other girls because you feel guilty, you're satisfied, like you're just repeating back what she said and you're clarifying, right? Do you know what it is that you need, babe? And then, you're patient. That's one of the things we always try to rush it because we start talking because she doesn't have an answer right away. Let her just, you know, let her feel that you're there for her. And then from there, and you get what she needs. Okay, so it sounds like, if I came home and helped you with the insecurity, for example, that might be a good idea, right? That would help you feel a little bit safer, with where you're at currently. And again, I don't know what she's going to say, so I don't want to go too deep into it. But then from there, what what is it with getting what you need? Like, can you identify like how you would feel if you got what you needed? You know, and then at the end of that, you can try to provide structure where you can get into solutions, right? Because you're at a deep level of understanding. Does that make sense?
I think so. It's a lot going on for sure, but
It is. Go watch the video on connection over correction on Rappaport. Okay, the half
Mhm.
rap. It's really about half rep. It
Yeah.
might get, if she shows her natural, loving, empathetic self, you know, it might get to your side of the equation. But right now, we want her to open up so that she can get past the first step. So we can start flirting again where she feels safe, you know, non-sexual, as you put it on your voice note. I just want to be connected to my wife, right? And then once we get past that, we can move on some more. Okay. Go back to your tolerance level now in the patience formula and how much you love her, 3 years versus 3 months. How do you feel about this plan?
I guess it's kind of what I had mentioned, message to you earlier was just about that it's been more than the 3 months. It's really been a year, you know. I mean, 3 months in the program, but kind of a year ago was when it was kind of like, okay, this is the last straw. I need to work. I need to improve myself to improve our relationship, and things
Mhm.
got way better. Like last fall, like things were really good in terms of, you know, everything outside of intimacy had gotten back to a much better place. There were still some things that I learned obviously when I came in here that I was doing wrong, and that's I
Mhm.
think that's my issue with the patients, you know, where I'm struggling with holding on to the patients is it's like,
Let me
man, it's been a lot longer than that. It's almost like we like 2 steps forward and then a step back and then you know,
well, but that's perspective, right? I've got to go. I'm already late for the next
yeah,
call,
yeah.
but let me quickly put this in perspective, and then I want you to think about it and send me a voice note back
Okay.
later, okay? But I want you to put this into perspective. When we start building a house, if we don't put, you know, the concrete floor down, right, and we just start building studs, we don't have a foundation. If we building walls with studs, if we start you know, building those walls but we don't put them evenly spaced so we know where the insulation is going to go and some of the insulation is going to fall down, right? Well, at the end of the day, we don't really have a house, right? And I think I recognize this so clearly, and that's so common, and the reason why I do is because it was like the 2 years where I tried to replace yelling with not yelling, cover anger, you know, but I didn't have all the rest of the steps in place, right?
Yeah.
So this is where we've done this a few times with you, and it's hard to reflect on because you remember when you started to make your real changes. It wasn't with me, it was a year ago. Okay. But own that we didn't have all the steps to start. And then I want you to do this. This is where the wins do matter. Things did get a lot better with you, but now you guys are connecting so deeply where, I mean, you wouldn't even know how to have that conversation about Father's Day. And you were nervous, but how well did it go? You said a year ago that wouldn't have happened. You might have got somewhere in the last year, but would that have happened with all your conversations? Right? We
No.
certainly couldn't have a conversation with the intimacy stuff that we've planned out today. Right?
Yeah.
So bear that in mind when you think about your patients, because man alive, like if you can understand, well, it's kind of like halfway showing up if we're trying to
Yeah.
fix like 4 of the problems but there was 10, right? It's like trying to communicate before we even understand how to listen or lose defensiveness or whatever other skill we need, right? That's the problem. So we don't actually ever get anywhere. Instead of just taking the time, which you're doing now, but now you're tying your time with, but I started this a year ago when, well, and a few other things, but you've recognized that. So we want to dial it in. Remember, this is not a forever thing. You have massively improved to a point where we can have some conversations like this. I can't ask my other guys, or a lot of the other guys, sorry, you know, let's go ask her about this. No
Yeah.
way, man. No way. Right? A lot of them just aren't there yet. Right? It's your ability to own the program, follow through, talk to me, right? As long as we can work together, we will get you there. Okay.
Sounds good. I appreciate it. You're right. I just got to slow down a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Come to the stat training later today if you want. We'll do that
I'll
live
be
training
there.
because we can also do a little bit of stat with, you know, what if she takes this really hard, really shuts down? So let's do a little stat on that example for you. Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Same time as the usual Zoom.
Yeah. The 2 p.m. Eastern. Yeah.
Yep. Perfect. I'll be
Okay.
there.
Okay, buddy. See ya.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
You, you got it.